This book had so much potential, was so well researched, but unfortunately the execution did not do it for me. You're about to watch me read The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. I'm going to be updating you periodically with my thoughts as I'm reading the book. So let's go right back in time to right before I read this book, and I was very hopeful. I'm looking forward to reading this book. I'm a little bit like mentally preparing myself to read it because I have a feeling it's going to be like really heart-wrenching and sad, but I think that it's also going to be like beautiful and an important read because it is based on like a true story about the last woman who was executed for witchcraft in Britain. So I don't know what that means for our main character, if she's supposedly that person, or if it's her mom, or if it's somebody that she was related to. I don't know, but definitely like a little nervous about reading it, but like excited at the same time. So from my understanding, The Last Witch of Scotland takes place in the 1700s, and our main character and her mom end up surviving this big like fire that unfortunately takes her dad's life or the husband's life. And so they kind of leave, I believe, that area, but it left a lot of like physical scars on them. And then they go to this different community and they're trying to like blend in and stuff, but obviously it's like a little bit harder when you're a victim of a fire. And then this priest starts to kind of become interested in the daughter and the mom, and that brings a lot of like conversation and rumors and stuff. So I believe that he probably thinks that they're like practicing witchcraft or something, and so that's going on. And then there's also, I think, like a traveling circus in this book. There's this guy named Jack who I think our main character, the daughter, is kind of like interested in. So I think there's like a bit of a romance or something that goes on over there. And yeah, that's pretty much all I understand from the book. So I'm very excited to read it. I've heard that it's written very well. So yeah, without further ado, let's crack this book right open. So I'm now a little bit more than 100 pages into The Last Witch of Scotland, and here are my thoughts so far. So there are two perspectives in this book. The first one is our main character, Aila, or Aila, I'm not entirely sure how that's pronounced, and it's done in first person. The other one is in third person, which is like the traveling performers. So this is like Jax and all of his kind of like crew. And so there was a book that I read recently that had a very similar like first person, third person that I was like, huh, interesting, that was done very well. This one, honestly, it kind of like threw me in for a loop, but like I think that it works and it makes sense, and I like being able to see all of the different things. I don't know why it was chosen to do first person and third, whereas I think that third might have actually just worked overall for the entire thing so far, but that's just what I think. I will say that the pacing of this book is pretty slow, for me at least. I think that the prologue was excellent, really just like heightened up all the tension, introducing you to the main character, her mom and her dad, and like what their life was like before everything happened. So after the big incident that happened, our main characters basically move elsewhere to where our main character's cousin lives, who's like on her mom's side. And so they live there and everything seems to be okay for at least the first couple of years that they live there, but everything starts to change when their reverend has to go and leave to help a sick sister and gets a replacement. And this replacement is on a witch hunt. Now, none of these characters are even practicing witches, nothing like that. But the whole kind of underlying theme is that he doesn't trust women. He does not like women. And he's finding an excuse because our main character is like pretty disfigured after the fire incident. And the mom has kind of signs of maybe like dementia or something, so she doesn't really understand what's going on sometimes. She gets really confused, all that. And so while this is going on, our kind of like group of entertainers ends up showing up here as well. So there's instant attraction between the two characters. Jack sees Alia. I feel like I'm gonna have a different name for her every single time I'm recording this, but you know, please correct me if you know how to say it. I always feel so bad when I can't pronounce a name properly. And so he sees her and is like, wow, like she's super like gorgeous and super like unique, and like her whole family thing is like they create this ale and they sell it. So he actually meets her at the market, and she sees him and is just like, wow, this is a beautiful man. And what kind of helps with their interaction is that he actually shakes her hand, and that's something that's people don't do with her anymore, because with the fire incident, some of her fingers were actually like melted together, like one of her hands is completely like she can't even really use it, like all that, and people are always like, ew, like gross. And so that he shakes her hand, she's like, wow, like this guy, not only is he hot, he's also really nice. And people don't treat her like that, so she's instantly like kind of like, ooh, I want to see him again. So you could say that it's insta love, insta attraction, but I think when you think about it from her perspective, the first person who's actually like kind to her instantly piques her interest. And then for him, I guess it was instant attraction though, but we're learning more about him, and they did have like an oddly deep conversation for their first time kind of meeting, so that was pretty good as well. And so like Jack and his traveling performers and stuff are pretty much like the highlight, the happiness in this community that right now is going through a really tough time because the new reverend guy who's just like on this big witch hunt and kind of just like creating all of these unnecessary tensions and singling people out. And so they have this kind of like performance that they can go watch and really just have fun and talk to people. And especially for our main character who doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere, these people make her feel like she does belong. So that's really nice. And it's something that I'm definitely seeing more of in the book now that it's starting to pick up, because I did find that it was a bit slow at the beginning. I think the prologue was really good, and then I think that it was pretty slow. The pacing was just like a little bit laggy for me, and then now it's starting to pick up because the cousin, Peggy, she has a horrible husband, by the way, and she's pregnant, and this is kind of like a big part of the story because we're now getting a humanization of the reverend guy, which I thought was good, because right now, like, he's our villain. He doesn't care about the truth. He's basically using faith to scare people and single people out, and one of the kind of like main themes of this is that faith is more powerful than truth, and I'm definitely starting to see that more and more as the book continues, and especially with like main character's mom kind of having these moments where she doesn't really remember what she's doing or does things completely like uncharacteristic, gives this reverend guy more fuel to the fire that she's colluding with the devil and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely starting to pick up, and I think that I'm going to be enjoying it more now that we're all done the setup part of it, and we're going to get into like honestly the hard stuff. Something else that I am really enjoying about the book is just like the time period, knowing that it's a historical fiction. I think that it's doing a really good job in depicting that, and like the outfits and the smells and the taste and really just the scenery around them and the way that the characters are. I do find, and maybe this is just me, but I don't know if characters talked like this back then. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit like unsure about. Like, it feels a bit too modern. Like, I don't know how to explain it any other way, but it's not like super modern where there's like slang and stuff, but it feels disconnected to me for some reason, but maybe that's just me. So yeah, I'm gonna continue to read, and I will update you around the halfway mark. So I will see you then, and we'll see if I end up enjoying it a little bit more. So I'm now definitely more than halfway through The Last Witch of Scotland, and I have like conflicting feelings about this book. At times I'm super interested in what's going on, and then when I'm really interested, I'm like, wow, what's gonna happen? It's suddenly the writing changes from this really nice, descriptive, emotional, historical, humanizing writing into just telling you about a bunch of stuff. Which from a reader perspective is super jarring, because it shows that like this author knows how to write. And I don't know, like, I don't want to say like he's being lazy, like I feel like that's not the right term, but it's just the way that it feels as I'm reading it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of skip over all this stuff, but it's like, what? But like that stuff's important as well. Like, I want to know what happened with Aila and Jack. Like, why skip that scene? Why skip all of these other scenes? Like, I don't know, that part disappoints me for sure, because like I really like when it's being written, but then it just feels like it skips over important details. Like, it's like, okay, just don't want to write these scenes, is kind of the way that I feel about it. But on the flip side, some stuff that I really do like is I like our main character a lot, Aila, I think that she's really strong. I think that she's really just interesting to follow around. I like that she stands up for herself. I like that she takes care of her mom. I love that she has like the sweet and gentle side, and she's just really determined. And having like a strong woman as your main character, especially for a book like this, I think is really important. And I think that she's well developed. And then I also think that her mom is well developed. I really like her mom as well, Janet. It's really complicated because we know that Janet, just like with old age and stuff, she's having trouble with like memories and understanding like where she is and stuff. But when we do get to see her and her personality and how hard she works and how much she loves and cares and how strong she is, and like this life that she lived, like she lived in different parts of the world, she has a bunch of knowledge, she worked with traders, she has so much that I imagine that people are threatened by this, and that's why they're like, that's a witch. The other two characters that I like are Malia, which is like, these are like in terms of the entertainers. I like Malia. She's a little girl who basically has this whole found family aspect going on, and I like her. She's funny, she's hardworking, she's really sweet, and I just really like her story. And then I also really like Hector, because I'm a sucker for the gentle giant. What can I say? But the other characters, I don't know, I just don't really feel connected to them. I don't feel connected to Jack. I don't feel connected to Ellen or Sim or Bess or any of these other characters. They feel like they're just kind of there and they don't really do anything. And when they interact, it feels really like flat and forced for the dialogue. And I'm just like, So yeah, it's really conflicted because there's parts that are like really, really well done, and then other parts that just feel like they were just like not returned back to when the like manuscript was complete. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of work and effort that was put into the historical aspect. That's definitely like prevalent in the book. So that's something that I really like about it as well. But yeah, very conflicted right now. We'll see how the book ends, and then maybe it's one of those books that it's like better after you finish it and you're like, wow, you know what, that was actually pretty good. But right now I'm honestly like a bit disappointed in it. So I'm going to continue to read The Last Witch of Scotland, and I will update you when I'm done the book with my final thoughts. So I will see you then. So I just finished The Last Witch of Scotland, and I would say I think the last 100 pages were the best of this book. And the book itself, I think honestly, like the author's note at the end was what the book just should have been. The author's note has 6 pages at the end that goes into the history and the research and really just like what this story was based on. And I think that if he stuck to just that, it probably would have been much better, because like this whole thing with like this traveling like trope of people and all of this like random stuff that happens in the book was just like a lot of filler. And I don't know, it didn't really like hold me. But when we got to the last part, when it actually was like the witch trial and the execution and all of that stuff, that was where it was really good. So I don't think that this book had to be as long as it was. I think that there was a lot of fluff. There was a lot of parts where it felt like the author was just kind of skipping it just to get to the good stuff. And that's disappointing to me, because I really, I can see that he knows how to write and he puts so much effort into the history, but there was just so much fluff in this book. I do think that understanding and reading about the story of Janet Horne was really, really good. I didn't know this story, and I can't believe that honestly, like this was something that happened to people, especially intelligent women. Like that's who was targeted the most. And so yeah, that was the part that I liked about the book, learning about the history and really just understanding what people went through during that time and kind of just like honor them. But yeah, the rest of the book, I don't know, I wasn't that interested in it. I did like Aila's character, The weird kind of like first person, third person did not go well, to be honest. It should have just all been third person. There were parts that were written expertly, but then there were other parts that were not written expertly. It was like two different people were writing. Like the author wrote all of the history part, like this part of the book, and somebody else maybe just wrote the beginning. I don't know. That's kind of what it felt like. It was like two people at the same time. I don't think a lot of the characters were fleshed out. I was not into the romance in this book. It felt really forced. A lot of the conversations were really forced. And yeah, but Aila's character was good. Janet's character was good. Hector was good, and Mally was good. But the other characters I didn't care about. Had no emotional attachment to anything that happened to them, so yeah. So I'm going to be awarding The Last Witch of Scotland a total of 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it. Not really. There was parts that I enjoyed, parts that I didn't enjoy. It was super conflicting, but I think that the story's an important story. But I think that if you want to read the story, just like go to the end of this book and just read the author's note for 6 pages and like you're good. You don't need to read an entire book. This could have been a short story. I think if it was a short story, I would have given it a much higher rating when it just was maybe like a little bit of introduction and then get into like the witch trials and the execution and like showing that they weren't actually witches and stuff. So yeah, that's what I think. So the next book that I'm going to be reading is A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Lane. I'm excited about this. This is my book of the month pick for September. We're about to be going into October though, so I mean, I'm actually think I'm going to be reading this the month that I got it, which I don't usually do. I usually just collect these until I'm ready to read them, but yeah, this is what I'll be reading next. So if you're interested in watching me read A Song to Drown Rivers or any other book that happens to be on my never ending TBR, I do have a fall book haul video that I released, and that goes through all of the books that I plan to read this fall season, so definitely check that out if you haven't. And if you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoyed this video and if you're into like history fiction kind of merged together books, definitely hit the like button and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!